Gather round, ye friends, gather round for 3 tales. Tales that at first might seem totally unrelated to one another, but hopefully upon conclusion will be seen as united in theme. Yarr. Okay, regular voice. Tale number 1. In the 2024 elections, 37-year-old Democrat Rebecca Cook took on incumbent Derek Van Orden, a 56-year-old Republican, in a hotly contested race to represent Wisconsin's 3rd congressional district. She lost. This year, Cook is opposing Van Orden again, and at a recent campaign event said the following about Israel. Quote, "I don't think that taxpayer dollars should be going to fund the killing of children. Period. I think this is a moral issue. The other thing that I'll say is that I don't think that we should send more military aid to the Netanyahu government invasion." When asked about these comments by Jewish Insider, who reported the story, Cook said, "I strongly support Israel's right to defend itself." Tale number 2. In 2019, New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft founded the Foundation to Combat Antisemitism. And in the 6 years since its inception, they've done a ton of work in a number of different directions. Research on Gen Z attitudes, unity dinners between Black and Jewish college students, and most famously, they ran a number of really effective ads about anti-Jewish hate on TV during major events like the Super Bowl and the Academy Awards. They also ran a not-so-effective ad with Tom Brady and Snoop Dogg, acting like parents role-playing what it looks like when mommy and daddy get mad at each other.
I hate you because I don't understand you.
I hate you because people I know hate you.
But I digress. Mr. Kraft is certainly putting his money where his mouth is, and is one of the very few public-facing Jews with means actually putting those means to use in a thoughtful, targeted, and productive way. To try something, anything, to push back against the swell of anti-Jew bigotry poisoning our world. So hats off to him and everyone at the foundation. And just a few days ago, the Blue Square Alliance Against Hate, as the foundation is now known, released this new ad.
What do you say when a Jewish boy is kicked on a New York City sidewalk? What do you say when a Holocaust survivor is firebombed on the streets of Colorado? What do you say when 1 in 3 Jewish Americans were victims of hate last year? When there are no words, there's still a symbol to show you care. Share the blue square and stand up to Jewish hate.
Let's put a pin in that, pun intended, and move to tale number 3. As some of you may know, building bridges between the Jewish community and other communities is a huge priority of my advocacy work. At the moment, I'm involved in a number of different projects to that end, including a Shabbat dinner I'm hosting with a really diverse group of Jews and non-Jews, with really curated programming geared towards meaningful impact. And as I was filling out the guest list, I reached out to a well-connected Asian American acquaintance of mine, asking for help in finding some high-level folks from his community who may be interested in attending the dinner. He was happy to help and immediately started reaching out to some likely candidates. A few days later, he checked back in to tell me that, regrettably, he was striking out everywhere. Everyone had passed because, quote, "they're skittish about the timing given everything going on. The fear of backlash is significant right now for a lot of them." So to recap, we have a Democratic congressional candidate saying she stands by Israel's right to self-defense while also describing its military campaign in Gaza as a U.S.-funded invasion focused on the killing of children. We have an ad about violence against Jews that suggests the proper response to such acts is to post a blue square icon on your social media. And we have a group of non-Jewish public-facing professionals balking at even associating with Jews publicly because timing. Promised you a theme, right? Well, here it is, and pardon my language. These are bullshit behaviors that are widespread, totally normalized, and direly need to be called out and disallowed in polite society. Jew hate is a nasty habit, and the only way to get the public to give up a nasty habit is to create real consequences for engaging in it. Look at smoking cigarettes. Everybody used to do it. In other parts of the world, everybody still does it, but not in America. Why? We were flooded with data about how harmful it is, flooded with advertisements that showed us how harmful it is. The government legislated against it, movies stopped showing it, and it went from being viewed culturally as cool and glamorous to dirty, unhealthy, and antisocial. That's the formula, people. What's not the formula is letting folks get away with bullshit behavior unchecked. In the instance of Rebecca Cook and every other person like her, to quote Bill Maher, people keep saying Israel has a right to defend itself, and then whenever Israel does, they object to it. We cannot continue to let people skate by with this disingenuous crap, especially public figures. You should not get to say, I support Israel's right to self-defense, and then call their military campaign an invasion or a moral issue. Does the way Israel conduct itself in war matter? Of course it does. But the way every army ever conducts itself matters, and yet only Israel gets put under the microscope. And this while fighting literal terrorists whose behavior nobody seems all that concerned with. It's the classic anti-Jew double standard. Furthermore, almost nobody weighing in on this stuff is doing so from a place of earned knowledge or expertise. Can you criticize the IDF's military decision-making? Sure. Are 99% of the people who discuss it qualified to do so with any level of real fluency and familiarity? No. Most people, including most of us, base their arguments entirely off what they hear other people say. That is not informed reasoning, folks. That is not research. What it is a very weak reason to stake a claim to an opinion. And yes, let's talk about the elephant in the room because I'm sure some of you are thinking about it. What about the aid and the starvation? Did Israel botch the whole aid thing? Abso-freaking-lutely. They let things escalate way too far, were way too disorganized in their implementation, and they put a lot of people needlessly in danger. It was a horribly executed strategy, and you don't need to be a military expert to see that. But did they do it as part of a child-killing invasion? No. They did it to try to exert some leverage on the terrorists holding Israeli hostages, and to mitigate some of the terrorist leverage who had been profiting off the stealing of the aid. The flattening of that complicated situation into Israel bad is another bullshit behavior. So when someone like Rebecca Cook claims to support Israel's right to defend itself and then demonizes its response in a low information, zero nuance, everyone else I know says this, so I will too kind of way, we have got to call that shit out. See something, say something. Which brings me back to the new Blue Square Alliance ad. I am certain this campaign is data-driven and being done with only the best intentions. I know their focus is to appeal to unengaged Americans who may not know any Jews or even be aware that violence against Jews is a thing. And so getting those people to show solidarity by posting a blue square could be a meaningful action. And I absolutely reject the premise of the campaign, which is entitled When There Are No Words. If you see a Jewish boy being kicked on a New York City street, you're going to tell me the expected or appropriate response is to have no words? I don't know, I got a few words. How about stop kicking that Jewish kid, you fucking racist? Or somebody help, he's kicking that Jewish kid right here on a New York City street. Or how about this is horrible and needs to stop? Can you imagine an ad against, say, anti-black racism saying, if you see violent attacks happening to us, get to your phone as fast as you can, not to call for help or check in on your black colleagues, but to post an icon on social media. That'll help the kid bleeding in the street, you betcha. Racism is racism. Hate crime is hate crime. If you see something, say something. If you have no words, find them. Someone's getting beat up over there. Jews need to have a little more self-respect than to think the best we can hope for in response to the massive wave of hate crimes against us is for people to have no words. If people have no words, let's give them some. Let's give them a vocabulary. Don't tell them it's okay to be a bystander, or worse, that that's the most we expect from them. Don't tell them performative solidarity on social media is going to change things for the way actual Jew haters hate on actual Jews. It would be one thing if there was a single blue square moment that captured the world's attention, but random people randomly throwing up a square at random times, that's the best we can do? I don't think so. And last, the most egregious bullshit behavior of all. Friends, I know we're talking about your bosses and your colleagues and your professors and your old high school friends. I know there are certain boats you are afraid of rocking. But allowing otherwise well-meaning people to openly conflate the situation in Israel in any way with the mere existence of Jewish people outside of it is racist AF. If they don't want to go to, say, a pro-Israel rally, okay, fine. They don't want to step into the arena at all. I can live with that. But you can't even be seen in the home of a Jewish person. You can't be known to have been associating with Jews at a Friday night dinner. You can't attend an event hosted by a Jew, even though that event is, by design, full of non-Jews and racially diverse Jews looking to build more understanding across identities. If the event was an Iranian Nowruz event, or a Chinese New Year, or a Russian Orthodox holiday, would those all make you skittish too? I am certain that in that scenario, the bigotry of conflating a random Iranian American with the actions of the Islamist regime in Iran would be obvious. But as we know too well, Jews don't count. The only way to break a normalized social behavior is to create a social cost for engaging in it. Choosing a fear of quote-unquote backlash over associating with Jews is literal Nazi Germany shit. I can't be seen with Jews because of Israel is not an okay way for anyone to think or feel. I can't be seen with Jews because other people who wrongly conflate Jews with Israel might be mad at me is also not an okay way for anyone to think or feel. If you're more concerned with what bigots think than what the victims of bigotry think, you're not exactly on the right side of the equation. Look, I understand that most of the folks that engage in these bullshit behaviors are just ignorant. They don't realize how harmful and prejudiced this behavior is. And as I've said, it's been normalized by everyone around them. How does this come to pass? Because we let it. They don't realize these behaviors are bullshit because nobody's told them it's bullshit. Because we're afraid to. Because we don't want to make a big deal. Because we delude ourselves into thinking that in moments like these, there are no words. Well, guess what? That's also a bullshit behavior. That's just your fear of confrontation talking. Very few times in the modern age are decisions based on fear the right ones. Even if you're scared, if you see something anti-Jewish, you have to say something. Because I promise you, the future where we continue not to say something is a lot scarier than the one where we do. This is the 43rd episode of Being Jewish with me, Jonah Platt.